Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter. And in this part of the 2024 into 2025 kind of broadcast list, I want to talk about the transition from an 8 year to a 9 year, numerologically. And 2024 has been an 8 year. 8 year has to do with wealth, and on a mundane level, understanding wealth. So, if you think about 2023 as a very karmic but also luxury, year, and 2024 as understanding wealth, we definitely got to understand what are the constituents of what we call materialism this year. And whether it is, the picture of the King Charles with the horns, the worshipping of materialism, but also war and the finances that go into that, money laundering, how Epstein is associated with JP Morgan. And for some of us, it's been a foundational year, some of us been other type of year, but on a mundane level, it has been a year 8 where we definitely got to understand what is today's notion of what we call material wealth. 8 is also number of infinity. Okay, if you turn it to the side, is the symbol of infinity. So even the symbol 888 has been inverted to some sort of devilish, composition, and I don't mean it in the Christian terms. That is actually the greatest working of the devil are done underneath the Vatican and within it. But the connection and also the supposed spiritual connection, the rituals that are done around currency, money laundering, very deep here, and very transformative in that sense. And we are closing the year of 8, but we also got to understand other type of wealth. We talk about reforestation of Sahara Desert and other deserts. We're talking about which is rejuvenation of the well water, which is rejuvenation of the air, which is, we got to see countries that have dunes of sand but buy sand for construction because the soil is all that fed up with certain practices that it cannot even hold the water to construct, let alone to forest something. Think about the country that has dunes of sand and spend money importing sand for construction of housing. And on the other side of the spectrum, reforesting the Sahara. We got in contact with the resources, the oil. What does it mean when we use the energy from underground versus solar energy, or wind energy with the pros and cons of each, or hydrogen energy? And we're going from year 8 into year 9. Now, 9 is numerologically is the last number before we open another cycle into 1. So we go from this very, very Saturnian year into a lunar, a completion. 9 is associated with completion. Um, Birthing can occur. Also in year 8, which is incarnation. And so year 9 is about completion. And when we say completion, there's something karmic. It's not the karma of Saturn, but it is the passage of the moon, okay? It is something is birthed from this situation. And we are going to be revisiting the last 9 years. So we think about 2025, and we think 9 years back, which would be 2016. And there is a completion of everything that we met since 2015 is 16 on a very mundane level. It's not a personal year 9 for everyone. Okay, for me it's going to be another number. Okay, for you it's going to be another number. But definitely we are on a worldly scale tending to completion cycle since 2016. Okay, which was a year 1 of building foundations. So what happened in the world in 2016, I will need to look it up, it's not a declaration. It's an invitation for us to look at what happened mundanely in 2016. And we have been having quite some occurrences. Okay, we would have the Me Too. We would have the jailing and the releasing of Julian Assange. We would have the Ukraine war, the Israel-Palestine war. We would have an ongoing crisis in Syria, with now recently the falling of Bashar al-Assad. We would have the beginning of a world war. We would have regimes rising and falling. We would have Trump elected, and then, oh, thank you. It's back. My hat is back. I thought I have to let go and surrender it. Talk about completion. So we would have, as a mundane, on a mundane level, we would have a revisitation of all of these things to begin to close things, okay? And so on a personal level, it's going to relate to you. Let's say I'm in year 1 and I'm building foundation. A lot of these foundations were about understanding wealth and creating a change I want to see in the world, okay? Building these half moons as my action steps towards wealth that actually is wealth, okay? I don't know what to do with currency, but I can do something that is very fiscal in the sense that not taking steps is a very fiscal step as well. And to put my energy into building wealth that stands, that is to build an evergreen forest, okay, in setting, okay, the cornerstone or the corner soil or the half moon soil to refertilizing barren land. And you're going to see the combinations of year 9 with your personal numerological year. Now, I'm not a great numerologist. It's just something that I'm like, that has been so loud as a theme that I actually am capable to say something about that. So, year 9 is bigger closures on a mundane level since 2016 we're going to be having big closures. What have we been purging? And when I say closure, I do mean closure. Okay, it's not about, it's definitely not about karma and revenge. Okay? I hope for you, okay, that it won't coincide with those events. But closure is not about karma, it's not about revenge. You want to think about closure as a situation that something comes to the surface and you want closure. You want to you want to be able to leave that in the past. Now you want to be particularly aware of times and circumstances and situations where people have almost struggled to re-entangle with you. And to re-entangle people into another karmic cycle, okay? And so in those cases, if somebody's been trying to do that, even ritualistically, and it's like, you're leaving, you're like, I'm coming to close something. And I don't talk about, people take time to recover. It's not about, oh, get over that. No. It's about a situation where you are setting intention to resolve, whereas someplace else sets another intention. Okay? And in that case, there's going to be karma for these people. I'm not talking about recovery. I'm not talking about speaking up because you need to express yourself and to heal. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about you try to live your life and somebody tries to get at you and entangle you with them karmically. Okay? And that might be not somebody doing that to you, or somebody tried to entangle you and another person karmically, where you're like, both of you seem to be on a certain journey of like living your life and moving on, or curating something, or taking the time to individuate, and there's this third party that tries to karmically entangle this, even though you both just live your life. Okay, none of you desires to have karma with each other. Okay, so that can also be the case. You see that in year 9, you will see those things, if they weren't revealed by year 8, because a lot was revealed this year. It was a year 8 with Rahu in Aries. A lot was revealed. Also, what it is, people that try to do rituals of destiny swapping and fertility, like stuff that we didn't know exists, that's containing that time step of our currencies, of our wealth, of our trade, began to like, oh, that's why your Boli coal is not yielding. That's why you invest in a housing market and then they laser the place, and the investment program was called Laser. It's like, oh, there goes your passive income. But also beginning to think about solutions, beginning to reimagine a different notion of wealth. With those that have been trying to keep people stuck in a karmic cycle, year 9 might be another time we get closure on a mundane level. You say, hey, I'm not going to entangle forcibly with that person. And the quality of 9 is the quality of the moon. It's the water that comes and, if there is karma, it's like evacuate the place. I'm not talking about housing, but more like evacuate the place of karmic entanglement. For some people, it's going to evacuate the place, not by evacuation notice, but it's like evacuate that house where all that karma took place, all that entanglement, all these rituals that you don't want to affiliate yourself with, and you might find solution, and you might find closure. But also, this is a year where if somebody tries to, in the 9th year, bring on another cycle of the dumbfuckery, the power of the Mercury set intention to let loose, let go of that. Okay? Now, anything Cancer related, Cancer ascendant countries like Netherlands, housing related, caregiving related, is going to come to a certain sort of closure. Fertility, even cancer research. And again, it's not the end of everything, but it is definitely some cycle since 2016 is closing. If you have been, let's say I'm on year 1 and will continue until my birthday, so we'll be spending year 9 in year 1, which is very interesting, okay? So you might feel that stuff you've been working on since 2016 come to fruition, okay? Foundations you've been setting come to fruition, and that's your new foundations. For other people, okay, year 2, for example, is relationships. So you might have a combination of how is wealth tied to partnerships, and how is all those rituals tied to your marriage, your assets, but also successful relationships. Okay, happy unions. Why people come with the best of intentions and still the world is crushing them over nothing. Okay, and how that entangles with certain occultistic rituals, curses, and weird practices that maybe you've been even doing and laughing about if you're in lower ranks in the lodges, but then you're like, okay, that was participating in something I never consented to. And by the way, you never consented to, because that's important. There's no legal consent here, which never was. So, I'm not just speaking lawful, legally. For example, did you understand that the rent contract for housing is illegal unless you have a house that you own? You need to have choice when it comes to your basic, we talk about your safety. Did you even think about this? You cannot talk about informed consent if you are extorted to pay for housing. You don't have a property. It's different if I go on several days and I have a property, someplace where it's safe for me to live in, I have a job, and I travel the world to a safer place. And not a safer place, that's incorrect. For example, refugees. Okay? I know it's going to touch sensitive spots for a lot of people, but, there is a consent issue, this legal consent issue. If you have to be buying in this price in this area because you're not safe in another price in another area, and you don't have a place where you're safe, you don't have your property, your contract is illegal. You never consented. That was extortion to begin with, okay? So for some of you, you think about your property, your housing, maybe you're divorcing, maybe people getting into contractual relationships at work. They never consented to. It's illegal. And not only that, it's also human trafficking. So you think about year 9 as a certain completion to something. What happened in 2016 and what is coming for closure now? For some people, it can be even an idea that you had in 2016. Everybody thought it was crazy. Nobody listened to the Me Too veterans when they said there's some psychic thing, there's some mind control, there's some MK Ultra. Now do you understand as global society? Schizophrenia, the cure is housing first and believe in the patient, okay? Okay, so we want to think about it on a mundane level. Now that the King of Great Britain, money laundering, not capital, but definitely one of the capitals of the world, we see it in red on red. We cannot ignore that. We see it in red on red. In 2016 was before COVID. It was before anything. Okay? It was before Ukraine. It was before Me Too. It was before. It was before Julian Assange was going Belmarsh. And I can say that this cycle has been eventful. It was after the Arab Spring, or the break-in of the Arab Spring. It is the aftermath of the Arab Spring. So that means that for each and every one of you, your personal year is going to coincide for most of you with both the ending of year 8 and the beginning of year 9. And that means that events that you said, aren't we past this, are going to resurface. Now, depending on your personal year, they may have resurfaced already. The eclipses have been resurfacing 2017, now 2018 is going to come to the forefront. So there's a lot of things that you might think, oh, we dealt with that. That are coming to have a revisitation. And again, the spirit of year 9 is we don't want to re-entangle, okay? And you're already informed that the inversion will try to re-entangle. You can always set your attention regarding that. And so that coincides with a very eventful year. Astrologically, there's a very cardinal, lots of new beginnings, lots of endings and new beginnings, which is fit with 9, but usually we associate the 9 with, it can be a birthing, but other than that, it can be closing things, where year one is laying foundation. I spent several months of year one saying, what foundations have I laid? And before I knew it, I would, after water expands upon cooling, expanding to another platform, building half moons in the soil, attending to political assassination prevention with already the first notices sent to people. I guess I have been laying some foundation. Because for the first couple of months, like, what have I been doing? I haven't been doing a lot. I could barely lift a finger. And even ran into a situation, even though I paid the rent in full, regularly, on time, was still trafficked in that place. And in ways that were like, you wouldn't think that that's what trafficking is. I didn't think that that's what's really like. There are many ways to traffic people. Apparently, this is one of them. So, year one is where there's a lot of foundations. So, when we talk about 2026, we're preparing for the world laying foundations. Now, what's a good thing about it is that if you think about it in terms of world war, unless it begins in 2026, which I think it kind of already begun, this might be some good news regarding laying foundations in 2026 that are not necessarily of war origin. I would have to research that more historically, but this is one component that standing in the favor of, regardless of what we think before 2025, by 2026 it would be a different type of foundation that we're setting. So when it comes to like all-encompassing world war, it might be less than 4 or 5 years, let's just say. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a fourth one, or there's going to be a third one, but it definitely means that year 9 is not a year to begin a world war, but to actually close one. Now, unless they intend to begin one in 2026, big time, I think that with everything that's happened in 2025, especially volcanically and war-wise, I think that by 2026 we will see a different numerological atmosphere here. How long can they sustain a situation of perpetual trauma? The thing is that the people that have been doing that have been living in that all their lives. But how long can it be sustained on a worldly scale? And also, when you do it on a mass scale, like a worldly scale, it's a different level of analysis, okay? That speeds up processes, of course. And it's also, it's different, okay? It's just different. To say I will do and to do is different, both for benefic things and for example, to say, oh, wouldn't it be cool to build half moons in the soil? What does it mean to refertilize this land? And I'm not talking about 1948, I'm talking about 100 years. In Palestine, that became a desert way before 1948. Can't blame that one on the Zionists. I see people growing crops in Gaza under war, and they're not doing the half moons, and I'm like, you're growing it so industrially, and I don't have a way to, like, other than a comment on YouTube, to access anybody. Just like, hey, you could do stuff in a way that preserves the water, and of course when you're in stress you revert to what you know. But it goes so much deeper than that. There's a different thing between to say I will do and to do. When you do, you begin to grasp the giant ripple effect of the actions. Now, when this actions is reforesting, it's one thing. When those actions perpetuating global holocaust, is another thing. And I think that right from the get-go, we've seen changes of discourse within a couple of months. Talking from the scale of what will be to the fiscal reality of the limitation to what can be. Okay? And there's a difference between to say I will do to doing, to get to reality of the action. And that is a lot of what we've been seeing in 2024. And now we're going to enter into year 9, where everything's going to surface, and it's not a year 7, okay? So it's not like there are karmic implications to okay? Year 7, I increased the space of my housing. And I was also going through homelessness before that, and learning that it's asking more for myself, not less, that took me out of homelessness. And it wasn't like I wasn't trafficked in the previous apartment. By the very people that were supposed to be in charge of assisting me to get out of when I walked out of trafficking situation in my job and my studies, which was the same place. What I did with that is tend into political assassination prevention. What I did with that is reminding that the role of remote viewers is not to target and traffic people, but to save them and rescue and solve cases, cold and not cold, of missing and murdered people. What I did with that is warn people for the way that those betrayals are set. What I did with that was to astrologically combine with the knowledge I know with elections that could be potentially at risk, and to warn people on these elections and where would that risk be. So, on a very mundane level, we are moving from addressing the reality, because you talk about it's not a year 7 where it's the implications of for all the steps you've taken so far. In year 7, I was wondering if I was too hard on with the people in academia. Wow. Yeah, I think you can imagine the answer. So we're not dealing with the year 7 situation. It's not like, oh, there's karma for your action. No, we are dealing with the resurfacing. Hey, that thing comes up from the past to resolve, not to re-entangle karmically, as year 8 tried to do, by the way, because there's a 7-year cycle to Saturn. And both year 7 and but particularly year 9, such attempts around the solar eclipses to re-entangle, to karmically tie to this, to that, it backfires. And then people working every day to try to course. That's a giant waste of your time. Go short on it. Now would be a good time to go short on it. Well, year 9 is coming to resolve things again. It's not a karmic year in the sense that now there's karma for your actions. No, that was year 7, and year 8 is kind of like exposing what we want to resolve and tend to and receive a closure for. And again, closure is not, it's also how it's going to be in Pisces. It's the sign of repent. It's the sign of forgive. It's the sign of end that which is, okay, wash away with the water of all those sins, okay? And again, I'm not talking about getting in on in the chapel. I'm talking about sins. Okay, so, but it's not in the sense of now there's going to be karma for your actions. Now there's going to be now you get it back. Now you get it this. Now you get it that. Now you see what you did. This is the result. Okay, that's not. It's not in any way that sense. Okay, it's year 7. The result of me thinking, well, I live in student apartment. I would never get more than that in Netherlands. Okay, was homelessness. One doggy sitter, everybody's one dog canceled doggy sitter away from being in the street. Fortunately, Jupiter was in Pisces, so there still was a lot of grace. But the result of me saying, well, I'll do with that, was homelessness. And the result of people trying to tend to my situation with words only and trying to correct my phrasing when I speak of corruption, claiming that I create rather than dissolve. They are in MK Ultra now trying to escape a mind control that causes them to say and do things that in their own worldview and even outside of it create okay, so again, but that's not the spirit of 2025, which is important to emphasize. So it's not about, oh, you're getting karma, or now there's that accumulation of your actions. Okay, for example, if I was going only Abraham Hicks, then I went to therapy. I was talking. They were talking about using words as dissolving things. I was like conflicted of the use of language, of what should I do, and then they were full blown MK Ultra, threatening me, astral raping me, torturing me, kidnapping me, and I'm like, okay, I think it's not because something wrong that I said. I don't think I could wear or remove item of clothing that would change that reality. It's highly unlikely that it has to do with my beliefs. Even the Jung paradigm here, I don't think that that's a reflection of who I am. That was not in my fantasy world either. There had to be a shift of paradigm. Okay, it's like, I love Abraham Hicks, I had to have another perspective. And so with year 9, it is more on along the lines of, and oh, I forgot that therapy. Dissociated. Anyway, but with year 9, we are talking about something that is more on the level of, hey, that thing comes up to be revisited and resolved. Closure. If I was thinking, what is this weird psychic attacks thinking that that's MK Ultra, it's global, you have been chosen to be one of the pioneering in modern times for the people that they do that from afar, and also not so from afar. Okay. And so that would be not an easy year, because you would just be visiting so many things. The many assassinations we had around the WHO. Some of the assassinations were not even discussed as WHO related. Okay? You want to think all the way back to 2016, 2017. And it's more on the note of, oh, that's that issue again. And for the most part, we will be able to set it aside. We'll be able to say, okay, now we deal with that, and now it really is closure for the most part. Okay, for example, if I think about year 9, was when I was beginning to work and conceive Water Expanse Upon Cooling, which would be recorded in year 1. I can't say that the person that prompted that ended their role in year 9. No, there was way more to unravel. For example, what they wanted me to do, and how it came about that I'm actually for the other thing exactly for what they meant me to do. But the fact that I discovered that on a year one definitely means that I can expect yes, if 2024, I can expect for at least to 2033. Okay, and that's so. Those cases can be. And it's not necessarily karmic entanglement, because that thing was already happening in 2016, that attempt, and even before that, okay, but it would definitely, okay, so there are more things to unravel, more things to untangle, and then one segment of that can be set aside, but definitely it's very likely then around 2033 I will meet that topic to resurface and perhaps close. But the thing is that on mundane level, it's not about now you're getting karma, it's not about revenge, it's just like, hey, now that we are looking at this from this perspective, okay, now that we are seeing that, we're taking a note that some of these things, and that pertains to your personal year. So that year 9, if you run into it within the cycle, in your year 9, that might resurface again. And you want to take that into account. Each of you has different numerological year. I'm not a numerologist. You can turn to a numerologist to computate for you. But that is something, yeah, and again, with the moon, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have implications for actions. Of course, it resurfaces for a reason, but it is about closure. I don't think the closure is not going to be of Saturn nature. That's what I'm saying. If you think about, you want to clear the slate before you birth something, or you want to discuss that and reach an agreement, or you want to emotionally, particularly emotionally and psychologically, process and purge. That's what it is. Emotionally and psychologically process and purge. That's more the thing. Okay? Saturn means karma. It's very concrete. Something meets something meets something. The moon means more how I feel about things, what are the baggages that I still carry since 2016. What psychologically affects my safety since 2016. Changes of housing to do with birthing can meet you in different hats depending on, okay, for your personal year. More about that. Again, if you think about from the perspective of only numerology, think about starting a world war. I think that usually, like, okay, unless you wanted to take less than a year, then if you wanted to take less than a year, then it is a conflictual year. Okay, this is the eruption of volcanoes on a worldly scale. It's not just physical volcanoes. But if you wanted to take less than a year, that might be opportune. But the laying of new foundation comes the year after. There's a new cycle opening in 2026. So, for the world. There's only so much that can be done in a year. Of course, the extinction of entire humanity can be done within seconds. So that is something that we might not want to forget. But it's particular because we have been touching since 2016 on things that pertain to the core essence of humanity. And we see both in 2017 and 2020-24 what comes up. That is going to make that lunar year, that year 9, the purgatory year that it is, and the astrology of that year. Okay, it's an astrology that is explosive. And I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about small explosions. And so the combination of the very lunar nature of the numerology and the very cardinal fire and air, and for much of the year land as well, nature of for the astrology, yes, they're going to be definitely, I guess, some closures to certain themes, okay, as well. So it's combining that and that. Ninth year is difficult because of that, but it's also, you want to think about the feeling that you have when you finally meet the understanding, the completion of a cycle. What on a mundane level would be completion since 2016? I can connect the dots between, the way we've been, the rise of CPTSD, for narcissistic abuse, and then cult related, and then the psychic things, and then the lodges, and then this, and then that. And it all began with women saying no. To something that they didn't even know was political assassination. For some of them, there were men. In gender studies, there were men that were being harassed there. So some people we still lost anyway. We don't have to lose all of them.